Okay, thank you, Jackie. Today I'm going to be talking about the structures-related changes to the 2012-2013 design standards that have been published in the 2013 design standards. First, we'll go over some website navigation, which is specific to the structures-related design standards and their support documents. Next, typically we would go over design standards revisions. However, the Structures Office has no current DSRs at this time. The developmental design standards we'll touch on. The Structures Office has released one recently, index D477. We'll go over that one. There's also been a few significant changes to the structures-related design standards. Not too many, but we'll touch on a few of those. And last but not least, I'll talk about your invitation to innovation. Taking a look at the design standards webpage, you'll notice that the developmental design standards, they're not tied to a implementation date. Therefore, each year they'll move up to the current standards year. I also want to bring up the mobile device icon at the top right of the screen. You might see this mobile device icon on the Structures webpage, Office of Design webpage, etc. I want to go into that a little bit because I want everybody to be aware of it and try it out and tell us what you think. The intent of the mobile webpage is to provide a simple and direct access to the most widely used publications the DOT has. As you can see, when you open up the design webpage, mobile webpage, you'll see a survey here, and there's only a few questions. It shouldn't take you but a few minutes to fill it out, and we'd love to hear your feedback. We're also kind of using this to gauge if we need to further develop any mobile apps in the future. To use this mobile web page, it'd be best to download the free Adobe App Reader for your mobile device. It's helpful also because it saves some of the files that you've recently called up in its recents for quick access in the future. So when you go to that link, bookmark it in your mobile device so it'll be you'll be able to pull it up very quickly. As you scroll down the page, you'll see sections with construction and design. The construction section has publications where the end user is the contractor, and the design has publications where the end user is typically the design engineer. You'll see that for the design standards e-booklet, we have a link to the 2013 webpage and the fiscal year 2012-2013 webpage. We'll try to keep the links here where projects are still being constructed using those standards, so people out in the field will be able to access these. We felt that linking to the web page was adequate since the organization of the ebook is fairly easy to navigate, especially on a mobile device. Under the design, you'll see the instructions for design standards. This brings you to the PDF, which is the full file for the instructions. You'll be able to navigate through any of the instructions within that file. Taking a quick look at the Design Standards e-booklet, I want to focus a bit on the support documents for structures. We have the instructions for design standards, data table for cell libraries, and borderless DGNs. I want to call special attention to the terms of use for using the borderless DGNs. When using these drawings to modify them for project-specific needs, please follow the terms of use and use one of the three methods available there. Here you have complete links to the IDS, the cell libraries, and the DGNs. These are all of the standards combined. Looking at the IDS, over on the bookmarks panel, you'll be able to navigate quickly to whichever design standard you're wanting to look at there. Looking back at the ebook, there are also individual IDSs and cells and DGNs. Please note that some IDSs are applicable to entire series of design standards. Taking another look into the IDS, there's a few main sections that are pretty crucial. The IDS is a very good tool. It's in order to use the design standard properly, it's something that all the engineers should be familiar with by this time. It states the design criteria that was used to design the standard if there was design involved. It also lists the design assumptions and limitations. Basically, that if there were assumptions made during the development and the design of the standard, they should be located here, and limitations on the use of the standard are here, so the engineer can determine if it's fit for use on a particular project. Also, we'll have design content, plan content requirements. These are requirements that are instructions to the engineer to describe what is required in the plans to properly include the design standards in their plans. Also, you'll note the revision bars. There's revision bars that show what has changed from one version to the next. So as you can see there, we've changed the design criteria to the 6th edition from the previous version of the 2012-2013. Oh, I'd like to go back real quick. Also, the plan content requirements also have data tables shown. There may be instructions on how to fill out data tables or examples, etc. So that's also contained there. Notice the MR3 CAD software suite is now available from the ECSO webpage. However, the interface has not been updated. So if you don't have the cells.xml file that I'll show you where the location is in a second, the bar menu interface will not show you the correct data tables. Okay, so what you'll need to do is you'll need to manually replace the cells.xml file with the file from the SDO website. The location of that file is, if you're on the structures web page and look at the left side of the sheet under office level navigation, go to the structures standard support tab, click on that, and you'll find the cells.xml on item number 6, and that also gives you instructions on how to install it. In item number 2, this cell library is available, which is the same cell library contained on the e-booklet page. Also, you'll note that we have provided data tables that are not associated with design standards. So in the IDSs, we show data tables and PDFs of them and examples of them, but if something's not associated with the design standard, there was no good place to put it. Therefore, we have located the drilled shaft data tables, steel sheet pile data tables, and the load rating summary tables here for your convenience. Taking a look at the developmental design standards link from the roadway design standards page. I'd like to call special attention to the process for the developmental design standards. It is located at the top of the table. So if you would like to know how to request or how to use a developmental design standard, please click on that link and it takes you to a bulletin that describes how to do everything, and it has a flow chart for the process. The Structures Office has recently released a new DDS, index D477. It was announced by a Structures Design Bulletin 12-11. I happen to be the monitor for this one. You'll see monitors for various ones throughout the future. Taking a deeper look into D477, basically this is a Tri-Beam panel retrofit where the tri-beam panel is directly attached to the existing traffic railing. These are the old post and beam style rails. Also like to note that there are special approach and trailing transition details shown in this design standard, which differ from Index 400. However, the limits payment, these special transitions and trailing in transitions are paid for as guardrail. Note that the tri-beam panel retrofit payment, it's limited to the length of the existing concrete railing. So that would be the pay item. You'd have a separate pay item for that. Just touching on some of the content within the Structures Design Bulletin. This is basically you use this with design speeds of 45 miles per hour or less, and where the existing traffic railing is structurally sound and free of major cracks or spalls. This is not applicable for use on post and beam concrete handrails having discontinuous top rails. Let me show you a couple of examples of post and beam handrails without existing continuous top rails. You can see here where the posts were typically precast. Once they brought them out here and set them in place and cast the column around them. So therefore, these are not continuous through those piles there. You can kind of see down here on the bottom right example where it looks like there's been damage and these have been knocked out in the past and had to be replaced. So, so this is example also that you can see the top rail has snag points, etc., etc. These are definitely, we don't have any examples of previous standards where this top rail was continuous. Okay, talking about the current significant revisions to the design standards. We don't have many significant revisions this year since the fiscal year 2012-2013 book. It was only 6 months ago. However, I'll talk about a few of them. For the complete list of all the revisions, visit the Roadway Design Standards website and look at the revisions PDF there. All right, Index 289. There is a bit of confusion about how to pay for a Type 2 connection as far as the quantities are concerned. What happens with the quantities on these box culvert extensions is that the MathCAD design program calculates the quantities based on a Type 1 connection, which used to be our standard connection. We've recently added the Type 2. So if you look on the left here, you'll see where that 2-foot extension where they cut the precast, they cut the culvert back 2 feet and then tie in to the existing culvert. That concrete quantity and steel quantity is included in the data table by the output from the MathCAD design program. Since Type 1 or Type 2 or Type 2 can be specified in the plans, we figured the best way to handle this situation for right now is to clarify to the contractor what is actually in the quantities. So previously on sheet 7, section AA, up on the top right you'll see a clip of it. We modified the call out. It used to say 2-foot tie-in length for Type 1 connection. Now it's been updated to say 2-foot additional payment length for Type 2 connection. We've also added a note to the data table for the contractor to be aware of this, and hope that the contractor's bids will be consistent. Looking at Index 470 traffic rail, looks a little faded there. Looking at Index 470, this was updated for consistency with Index 400. The Index 400 was recently updated to remove the pedestrian safety treatment such as pipe rail on the back face of the guardrail. to be paid for as separately, not as incidental work. Although this is a metal traffic railing and not a guardrail, they behave differently. We are referencing index number 400 for the details of these pedestrian safety treatments. Therefore, we want to be consistent, predictable, and repeatable, and follow the same methods there. So therefore, we've renamed it in accordance with index 400. We've removed it from this note, and now it's paid for directly per linear foot. Taking a look at index 852 and 862. Up at the top left, these are sections from the drawing where the 3-foot minimum dimension of the cross section. We had some questions. Some people thought we were specifying that the sidewalk had a minimum of 3 foot, which is not the case. Our intent was that we required the 3 foot for stability of the railing. Therefore, we clarified that note there. We've also made a few tweaks to the spacing of the post and a dimension here on the end cap of the rails on 852. And in 852, we had to modify the designations and dimensions of the post members. While we're on the subject of these pedestrian railings, index 850 and 860 are no longer included in the design standards, and index 852 and 862 remain as the standard for these aluminum and steel pedestrian railings. There has been some projects with incorrect pay item numbers. The BOE has been updated to clarify the validity of these rail types. So please see the new section 515.2 that's been updated. This is a copy of the old one. The new one is online. The Specifications and Estimates Office will be releasing a bulletin in the near future to address the issue. And just to let you know ahead of time, projects with letting dates of October 2012 and later, you'll need to go in and correct your plans and comp books with the valid pay item numbers. Index 5200, precast sound barriers. There were some pretty major changes to the layout of these standards. However, the changes to the structures weren't so drastic. You'll just have to take a look at the entire standard to see the new layout. I'll just point out a few issues here. One of the items was in the previous version, Note K restricted the contractor's redesign, so they were not allowed to submit cost savings initiative proposals. We removed that note. Now it opens it up back up to CSIPs. We reorganized the design standard to improve the flow of information, separate the processes where appropriate. For example, we had sheets with fabricator details, and where the fabricator would need it in the shop to create these precast members, and on the same sheet we had details for the contractor out in the field. So we reorganized it. We've also removed redundant information and details and notes, and we've eliminated cast in place collars where possible. The contractor prefer the precast collars. We only used the cast in place collars where the precast collars would not work properly. All right, taking a look at index 6040 for the precast concrete sheet piles. We clarified the orientation of the shear keys of the corner piles. So now where there used to be a type B and a type C are now type B2, B1, C2, and C1. It stems from the starter pile having 2 male connectors for the shear keys. And depending on which way you're going and which end you are, the orientation of the shear keys would vary. We have not heard of any issues yet, but I could definitely see one in the future. Therefore, we went ahead and modified this to show if you have opposite hand of this detail, then you would specify this for the fabricator, and he would be certain of the orientation of the shear keys. All right, index 6040, precast concrete sheet pile walls. All the cells have been renamed for both concrete and sheet pile walls. You can see here the acronym has changed. For this one, this is as part of the reorganization of these is due to the fact that we had to separate the anchored sheet pile walls into two categories. We separated it into pre-stressed soil anchors and deadband anchors. This is due to the difference in processes between the systems and the need for different types of information in the plans. We also did the same thing for steel sheet piles. However, you'll notice in the name change, we've also changed the numbers. Previously it was 6050. It's now 000, keeping in line with the fact that if it is not associated with a design standard, that it will not have a number associated with it either. So these data tables have been updated, and there are new data tables for the anchored walls. All right, taking a look at the Index 20,000 series, the pre-stressed Florida I-beams. We've added instructions under the plan content requirements for detailing of bars 4L when full depth diaphragms are required. Basically, what you'll do is you'll take the existing standard, the most recent standard at the time, and modify that standard in accordance with the terms of use using methods 1, 2, or 3. We spoke about the terms of use on the borderless DGN right underneath the title on the Design Standards e-Booklet. You'll go into the drawing of the most recent design standard and remove all the notes and call-outs and details associated with cutting of the strands and coating with the ends of the beams with epoxy. And you'll insert all the notes and call-outs for placement of bars L as shown in the 2010 Design Standards interim dated January 1st, 2010. Looking at another portion of the 20,000 series and the 20,200 series for the FIBs and FUBs. We just show the FIBs here for an example, but the same things happen with the FUBs. You'll notice that we have previously located these safety sleeves with caps. We've had the dimensions and orientation, and we've had the specifications for the sleeve, and we've also had the spacing for the sleeve and the notes. However, we've had calls from suppliers of safety devices asking us how they're supposed to incorporate their system into this. This is a contractor's means and methods, therefore we should not be specifying this in the standards. So we've modified it to just only show a representation of a safety line anchorage device, and we've modified the note, as you can see here, that the device or sleeves are required and permitted in the top flange only to accommodate fall protection systems during construction. See shop drawing for details and spacing of any required embedments. So basically the precaster who's doing the beams would be looking for shop drawings of these, and the specification, which is under FHWA review currently, will have this requirement for the contractor to submit these drawings. All right, I was on a trip to somewhere, I'm not going to say where, but we were in a yard and saw this beam, and I had to get out and take a picture of it. Basically, this picture doesn't do it justice. If you could see this in person, you'd be amazed at the skew and the angle here, and what it actually looks like in person. So when you're designing these bridges with beams, especially the FIBs with the wide tops and bottom flanges, please consider what's going to happen here and what's going to look like and not only that, what the performance is going to be. We've had a lot of ends breaking off where they've had to patch these just in the yard. I want you to look for further guidance in the future for the structures manual. We are going to put something in there about this and address it. Meanwhile, just consider the implications on the FIBs. Going on to Fender systems, index 21900. We all realize that fendering systems, we want them to be flexible and absorb the energy of the vessel's impact. However, we do not want the fender systems to impact a pier only because we don't want it to snag a vessel or damage the fender system itself. Piers are designed for ship impact when they're on navigable channels. However, we want to consider, if we can, the maintenance and we want to prevent unnecessary damage to the fender system when possible. So basically, what you are to work with the DSDEs and to place any required deflection limitations in the plans. When the contractor goes to select a fender system to use, he will work with the manufacturer to determine the energy capacity and the deflection criteria. One thing I want to mention is that we're currently working with the polymeric piling industry to streamline their approach to delivering their designs on projects. We've all realized, including the manufacturers, that the current system of QPL listing is not allowing them to maximize the efficiency of their systems. So therefore, we've been meeting with them. We'll be releasing a bulletin in the near future, and the QPL listing will eventually be phased out, and we will basically have them on an approved fabricator listing. The design will most likely end up in the contractor's hands. I don't see any other way currently to avoid that, so be looking out for changes in the near future. One thing I wanted to show you here is your invitation to innovation. When you visit the Office of the Design webpage, or we currently have a link on the Structures Design webpage, you'll see the green tab here, Invitation to Innovation, and click on that. And this is basically innovative ideas that the Office of Design are putting out there for engineers to think out of the box and put these on projects. The main idea of this page is to ensure the engineers that want to try these innovative ideas that the district will accept these if appropriate for the projects. And that's been a point that many engineers bring up, that they're not confident enough that they're going to get acceptance on these new innovations. So this is what we're trying to do and accomplish with this web page. Taking a look at just one, for example, a segmental block wall, typically there'll be a slideshow of pictures showing the system, whatever it may be. It will show typical construction details, materials, orientations of certain things. So it gets you kind of familiar with what this is all about and what it is you're looking at. Also, it will have certain sections. This one has an overview. It has a design criteria, specifications section, implementation plan, and restrictions and parameters. There will also be a contact person for each one of these items, where you'll be able to contact them if you have any questions or would like to include one of these on your project. So please visit the innovation website, and we would like you to consider using those on your plans. That's all I have for today. Here is my contact information. Please feel free to contact me anytime. We'll be glad to help. Thank you.